Hi, it's James from Pedal Power Bicycles. I'm here to show you today how to make sure your stem on your bicycle is tight. Uh, there's two main types of stem, a quill stem and a threadless stem. We'll start with the quill. This is what people sometimes refer to as a gooseneck. It goes down inside the fork and has a wedge in the bottom that holds it in place. So there's a long bolt right through this part of the stem that is threaded into the wedge, and you'll be tightening that from up here on the top. There's various different looking stems. Some of them you'll see just have a pretty obvious hex head right here on the top. It's almost always a 6mm. You can use any type of 6mm tool that you've got. This is a real familiar, like, hardware store looking one. This is a little bit nicer one that has a rounded end that gets different angles. The one theme here is that you're gonna wanna put quite a bit of torque on there, so keep that in mind if you're buying a tool. This stem has a rubber cover over the top of it, so I've removed that so that I can see the bolt. Again, some of these just have the bolt, but after you've lined up your handlebar and front wheel to where it looks straight to you, and we find this looks different to different people, sort of left eye, right eye thing. If it looks straight to you, that's what matters, because you'll be the one riding it. I would go ahead and straddle the front wheel with your knees and hold it, and then turn this sucker clockwise with about as much force as you're able to put on it. I find that even though stems have published torque specifications, if you're using a reasonable size tool, you're going to get the right torque by pushing with a reasonable amount of force, which is about as hard as people can usually push in this case. It's usually around 20 Newton meters acceptable torque, so it's pretty hard to over tighten. Then replace your rubber cap and check to make sure you've got it tight enough. It's actually perfectly acceptable for a quill stem to move independent of the front wheel under a good deal of force. It's still safe to ride, but you do want to make sure that you've tightened it as much as you can, and that it turns completely, independent of the rest of the bike. Now, the other type of stem is a threadless system. This guy here actually preloads the bearing in the fork when it's installed. So it has a cap on top that, if you were to loosen these two stem bolts on the side, it will be able to be loosened or tightened up here and affect your play in the headset. So you can loosen it to the point that if you grab your front brake and rock the bike back and forth, you can feel some play in there. To properly preload this, you'll want those bolts loose on the side, and then you'll just preload it until your wrench starts to feel a little bit of resistance, and then check. Your headset should have no play, but still churn freely. You'll know you've done it too tight if you have no play and it feels a lot of resistance to churn. You'll know it's too loose if you've got play in it, or if the play disappears, but you can still churn these headset spacers independent. Like this one, I can churn these even though there's no play. So I'm going to tighten just a little bit past that until that play goes away. Then I'm going to line up the handlebar. I'm done with the preload adjuster at this point, so I've got that set right. And I'm going to tighten these suckers. Now, the torque on these is usually more like 5 to 7 Newton meters, so not near as much as the quill, but you are using a 4 to tighten them, sometimes a 5, but a smaller hex head, it'll be harder to over tighten this with the 4 than it would have been with the bigger wrench. Once you've done that, you can be confident that your bike is going to be safe, at least in the headset area. We'll see you all next time. Until then, enjoy the ride.